Welcome to TradersPost office hours for March 11th, 2025. I'm Tom Hartman, marketing manager here at TradersPost, alongside Mike Christensen, co-founder and CSO, and John Wage, founder and CEO. We're always working to make TradersPost better day in and day out. Each week, we take a deep dive into all things TradersPost, answering your questions, gathering your feedback, and helping you get the most out of the best automated trading platform in the known universe. We've collected your questions over the past week, so let's dive in. How's it going, gents?
What is up?
Doing well. I realized earlier today is 311 day. So for those of you who are 311 fans, I've been playing 311 all day long. This is a happy, momentous day. So 311's been one of my favorite bands since like 5th grade.
Me too. And I always have this thing where I've always looked at the clock right at 311 all the time, like multiple times a week.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on it. Well, I guess you're coming up on it in just a few minutes
9
here, right?
minutes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
311. I've heard that in years. That's great. Perfect. Well, it's been a interesting week. I did want to bring up a thing here where we were having there was like two issues. One with Tradovate. What was the thing that was going on with Tradovate where their API was down for a little bit?
Yeah, it was down for about an hour. Both live and paper were down, but then live recovered. Or no, sorry, paper recovered. And then live was down. Paper recovered pretty quickly, and then live was down for about another 45 minutes.
I see. Well, this actually ties into there's a question that somebody had about a feature request, which is a TradersPost status page that shows any issues with brokers and connections or with TradersPost
It
itself.
exists.
Yeah, I was wondering, where is that?
It's in the footer. There's a status link on the website. Maybe we need to put it in more places.
Maybe in the app somewhere, a link to it from the app.
Oh, it's on the front end, I see.
Yeah, it's not in the
kind of buried a little
anywhere. Bit. Yeah. Usually that's where that's where I've seen other places put it, is always in the footer. But we can definitely figure out a place to put it that's more prominent. But we did update. I updated in Discord and on the status page about the Tradovate issue, and I actually want to move to a different platform for our status page, but it's been on my to-do list
for a little while. What we might consider doing is it's fairly common for people to have a status.website.com location. We might consider a status.traderspost.io and just redirect that to this for now until we decide to build something else.
I'm pretty sure I did have that working. It's not working now. I just checked it. Status.traderspost.io.
Yeah.
It was redirecting to that status page.
Oh, okay.
We only look into fixing that. Yeah.
Got it.
This is the first time I've saw the status page.
Well, that's the feedback we need, that it's not visible enough. So we'll work to make sure that everybody's aware of where to find that.
Right. Well, to be fair, very rare are the. I mean, I can't even really think of the times where it's like our fault that it's not working. So it's
we did have that one issue that was our fault. Well, it was
no, John. We've never had any issues. We've never had any outages.
We got the rate limiting in place now. We had one customer who basically kind of like DDoS attacked us with like almost like 100,000 signals in like a short period of time.
Yeah.
And it sucks because we had rate limiting almost ready, but I wasn't quite finished. So we've got it turned on now, but the next step is to hook up the notification so that when you do get rate limited, you'll get an email telling you when you get rate limited, and it'll also show up in the user interface when you're looking at a strategy or subscription to tell you the date, timestamp that you were last rate limited.
Just to make it clear, the rate limiting is going to affect like
nobody.
Very small percentage
nobody,
of people.
like very few people.
Yeah, it's to protect against the extreme scenarios where like people, in this guy in particular, like, imagine you have a Python script and you have an infinite loop accidentally created that just constantly sends webhooks to TradersPost with no time in between each webhook. So in a very short period of time, they could send thousands and thousands of webhooks. It's really to protect against those types of accidents.
Yeah. And I think we could probably spell out some of those scenarios a little bit more in our documentation so that people are aware. Like if you've got multiple strategies, multiple symbols, all trading on TradingView at the same time, and you're sending in, let's say, a request on the minute chart and you're sending a lot of trades at once, you're still well below this limitation. So it's not really those types of people that are trading very frequently, lots of different types of symbols, lots of different webhooks. It's really, like John said, the mass scale. I've set up this script. It's on this infinite loop, and it's constantly sending signals. That's what we're really looking for.
Yeah. So it's 60 requests per minute and 500 per hour. So that's a lot.
That's on a per webhook URL basis. So it's important
Yep.
to distinguish, like if you had two strategies running at the same time, it's 60 per hour per webhook URL.
Yeah.
Yeah, very important distinction. That's great. All right. Next up, someone was asking, when do the broker metrics update? Like, what
Broker
time of day?
metrics. I'm not sure. Are they referring to the balances?
That's right.
I'll have to look it up, but yeah, they run at night. I can pull it up right now. Let's see.
When this bleeds into the analytics, is that going to be
It'll be
real
more
time?
real time because we're going to be listening to. So it runs at 3 a.m. UTC. So that is, what time is that in Eastern? It's 11 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
So yeah, it runs at night. And analytics will be more real time because you're going to be listening to the order stream update WebSocket. So anytime an order is created or updated, it gets filled, status changes, it'll send the signal to us, and then that'll trigger the process to basically like recalculate the analytics based on that order changing.
Got it. Okay, cool. All right. So this question came in. I wasn't actually sure about it. I want to get your feedback on it. I have a subscription set up, paper account, to buy 100% of my equity position when a buy signal comes in, although it continues to buy the full amount of equity as new buy signals come in, and my previous purchase still hasn't sold. How can I limit so it only uses 100% of cash sold positions instead of going into margin? So
yeah. So with the TradersPost paper broker, it's gonna like we don't ever there's no like respecting buying power. It'll just keep on buying, and you'll use infinite amounts of margin. But I think in this case, you would probably just want to disallow adding to an existing position. So your signal would come in, it would open up the position with 100% of your equity, and then if you send yet another signal, because you don't have add to position checked, it'll see that there's already an open position and it'll reject the trade.
Got it. Okay. So along the same lines there for the add to position.
We need to clarify on that last point. I think this person's thinking about it potentially being another ticker. So even if you have allow add to position
I see
unchecked, it's still going to allow that other trade to come through.
You could use max strategy positions. That would be one way to do it. In the broker, you could set that to 1. If you were using any other broker, if there's no margin available, then the order would just get rejected by the broker. So that'd probably be the better, at least, solution is to use a different paper broker. Like the TradersPost paper broker is nice for just like quickly learning how all the pieces connect, and learning the software, but it's not as good of a simulation as, like the Alpaca paper broker, for example.
What are your thoughts, John, on at least maybe putting some thought into how we could implement margin settings in the TradersPost paper broker, where you can say, here's the limitation I want to simulate, and then we could honor that request?
Yeah, we could definitely allow them to configure like 3-4x margin. And then right now, when we fill a paper broker order, we don't even check to see if there's buying power available. But yeah, I think there's a long list of stuff that we need to do, like buying power, real limit order filling simulation, a slippage model, try to implement actual like stop limit functionality, trailing stops, to make it more real,
make it more robust. And we certainly would like to. In the past, we've tended to defer to the brokers because they just have so much more investment and a lot of technology advantages in their paper accounts than we have in ours. So we tend to try to push people towards using those other paper accounts because they simulate this better. But we will make meaningful improvements over time.
What's like the level of like difficulty of setting up a more robust paper broker? Like, is it?
It's
I
not a
think
small amount of work for
yeah, it's not a
sure.
small amount of work. It's not trivial. It's multiple asset
Yeah,
classes, but then on top of that, the tougher part is getting live pricing for all of those assets at the same time
that's right.
and all those tickers at the same time, so that anytime an event occurs that we need to fill an order for or simulate an order for, it's actually done in more real time, more accurately. And then implementing a slippage model is sort of a big technical hurdle because it depends on how sophisticated we want to get with it. Is it one where we just let you define a certain amount of slippage in price or percentage terms, or do we want to get more realistic with it by observing the depth of market and determining whether there would be somebody on the other side to fill your order? So there's a lot to it.
That's on the path to becoming a real broker. not,
May,
not exactly our
may as
journey.
well at this point, right? Let's just become a broker, John.
Right. All right. So someone was asking, we haven't had this question in a while. Is there a reason TradersPost futures contract rollover doesn't match TradingView's method?
There's just no real way to do it right now.
For similar reasons, actually, because we don't observe volume and price data at the moment. The model between TradersPost and TradingView is different because ours is time-based. I think we're rolling it over 2 days before expiration.
Yep.
And TradingView is rolling it over based on volume, whatever closing volume was of the previous day. So when the second contract volume is greater than the front month contract, then they roll it over to the next one. And that can sometimes occur 4, 5, 7 days before ours even rolls over.
I see. I didn't realize it. Okay, now that contextualizes a bunch of things I've
we
heard people say.
we wish that
Okay, makes
TradingView
sense.
had a variable for the alerts that would give you the like resolved contract. So if you use NQ1 or NQ2, instead of sending that continuous contract symbol, it'll send us the resolve symbol of whatever TradingView thinks is the current or the next contract. And then we just receive that contract and execute it so that we don't even have to have any rollover logic on our side.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I could create a Pine script
Well,
that
we've
could
walked
decide
through that before. I've written extensively about this in our blog post, and I've asked TradingView to provide a placeholder with the underlying asset, but I don't think it's that simple for TradingView. They can't provide it because I think the ticker is more of a static property that doesn't change dynamically. Once you've created an alert or set a strategy on the continuous symbol, it's only ever going to give you the MNQ1 exclamation mark symbol. It's not going to tell you what the underlying is. It might tell you if you ask about chart information on the chart itself, because at that point it's retrieving it. But once you've set an alert or set a strategy in place based on the continuous contract, I don't think that it can dynamically change what the placeholder would be, or like what the current underlying symbol would be. I've asked for it in support. They've said that they're considering it, and it's been kind of a product feature that's been delayed for some time now. So I've, in the blog post that I just shared here in our comments, and we can share in our show notes, my suggestion is to keep reaching out to TradingView and ask if it's possible for us to get this as a placeholder, because if we ever can, then the alert that would be sent from TradingView would include the underlying and not the continuous symbol.
If in our own tags method that we've been tossing into some of the Pine scripts, if we just detect which contract is actually being used by checking, check to see what the price and volume is, and just comparing that, and then that tag would be replaced with the ticker.
I haven't been able to find any
ticker.
property in PineScript that tells you what the underlying is, though.
No, but we would figure it out. So we would grab the
Sure.
GC exclamation point.
We could figure it out
whatever,
based on,
and then
time.
we would
The problem is that it's this volume problem. We have to be able to tell when TradingView has chosen the second month contract versus the first month contract as their underlying.
Right, but if the script is always check and see what the
Yes.
continuous contract is, it has the price and volume, and then we also grab it for all the next
So you're basically saying let's simulate their volume strategy.
That's right.
I'll show you their documentation. You might be able to infer it, but I don't think they're very specific about the volume requirements. It could be as simple as greater than or equal to the last day, but I don't know how far they look back on the rolling volume in order to make the
I
determination.
think they're factoring in like not just what it is now, but like what it has been for past rollovers as well.
Yeah. I think it's slightly complex, but let's say that we could simulate how they're doing the rollover. You're right, Tom. We could take all the front month contracts and sort of simulate how they're doing the rollover and then choose the symbol from there. If we can solve it, okay, here's your mission should you choose to accept it. If you can simulate it perfectly and we can test this pretty consistently, we will have solved the problem internally. We'll have everybody use our script, and that's how we would solve the continuous futures problem.
All right, if I could do it tonight, we'll do a blueprint
Perfect.
episode.
So let's do it.
Excellent. Okay. Next up here. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on, before we get to some of the other questions, because AI is doing such a great job answering a bunch of questions within TradesPost support, it sort of feels like going to the library in order to get information sometimes by asking some of these questions on office hours. So I wanted to go on to Reddit and find some broader topics that people have about automated trading strategies that come up again and again, and then you basically send this information to them afterwards. So I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this post, where someone was asking automated trading versus manual subjective trading. Some traders swear by manual trading, saying it gives them full control and allows them to adapt to market conditions in real time. Others argue that automation removes emotions, executes with precision, and follows a tested edge without hesitation. Manual traders often say automation can't adapt to change in markets, while automated traders believe emotions are the biggest weakness in trading. Which side are you on? Have you tried both? What's your experience? So I want to know what I'm curious what you guys' answer is to that sort of idea. I have a guess, but I'm curious what your opinion might be, Mike.
Sure. I do both, and I think that those reasons are very valid. The reason I look at markets in real time is because price action tells a story, and it's often very difficult to build a model that can interpret price action for the right reasons. You can measure a lot of things mathematically, but that doesn't really help you with the intuition of why prices might be moving very quickly and where buyers and sellers might be showing up. Many of the algorithmic models I built in the past did rely on the depth of market, which is not something that's available in TradingView's Pine script. So it's kind of difficult to model from the order book. So there are other tools out there that can help get you close to what that looks like in real time and build more quantitative approaches. And there's definitely models out there that are observing the depth of market in a way that is far more quantitative. There's stationarity in that data. So there's something that's, largely predictive, and you can trade very quickly around that kind of data. That's not something we inherently support very well within the TradersPost ecosystem. So that's probably where I would lean more towards is what can I do algorithmically by observing the DOM? But just trend following and mean reversion in general, there are larger trends that can show up in markets that I think diversifying across multiple strategies and multiple asset classes would be very difficult to manage on a discretionary basis, which is why we see that most traders out there tend to trade on a discretionary basis on one or maybe two asset classes at most, or symbols. Like most people have a symbol they prefer. They're like, I trade the SPY every day, or I trade NQ every day, and that's it. And the reason for that is that it's really difficult to manage multiple systems at the same time or multiple approaches at the same time. However, if you build an automated approach, you've got this ability to diversify across multiple assets, multiple symbols, all at the same time. And, if you miss that gold opportunity all year long because you couldn't take your focus away from NQ, well, being able to trade in an automated way allows you to get exposure to everything that's running in markets right now.
I find the automated, like you were just saying, the manual versus automated is like a false choice, because it's sort of like in chess, there's certain moves you're playing with intuition and you're deciding it. Other things, they're forced moves, right? They're these secrets of moves that you're going to be doing anyway. And once you're in that, well, there's no real thinking that you need to do. And in fact, you can introduce blunders and errors if you're actually overthinking this process. And so for me, for the automated strategies, I go, hey, once there's these series of rules, once the conditions are met, for this series of moves to happen, well, then you better have an automated strategy on and let it just take care of it. So if your thing is like, the price clings, just crosses above the 200-day moving average with these other conditions, and now you're in this trend following,
Right.
all right, go ahead. But then when there are big volatility events that happen, well, then I can't necessarily automate that sort of trade. Then I want to be able to jump in and get the and trade that volatility, because there's a huge
Yeah,
opportunity there.
I
Think
think
of the
there's
COVID crash.
I think of it in terms of overlays, right? Like ultimately I'm distributing risk across multiple avenues at the same time. If there's a big event coming up or a decision, an FOMC day, something Trump said, whatever it is, being able to trade that with some amount of small capital in a separate futures account on a discretionary basis is an overlay of returns on top of everything else I'm doing. I definitely don't see it as a trade-off or a choice. You can do both. There's no reason to say I can only be an automated trader or I can only be a discretionary trader.
Right. And when you see that the big dogs, what they're doing is, the automation in the active money management space even is increasing. You go, okay, there's a reason for that, because it just cuts out all kinds of
For sure.
errors.
What are your thoughts, John?
I think both are true. I mean, it depends on how well you can manage your emotions, and if you can make the same decision with the same rules consistently without being influenced by emotions or some external variable that's like not a part of your system, then you can do it. But I think most people struggle with the emotion sides of it, so they don't actually really execute their system consistently. They're always like kind of changing the variables, which I guess could work in your favor sometimes. And sometimes not. But I think the point is that it's inconsistent, and you're going to get inconsistent results as a result of that. But automation allows you to execute the rules consistently, no matter what, even if you're not at the computer or you have to go do something, you're away from the computer. With manual trading, you'll miss opportunities because you have to be glued to the computer to wait for those alerts to execute your plan.
And I hate that.
Especially in crypto.
I'd rather fail than not be in the trade and like, oh my god, I knew this could have been there. You get back to the chart and you're like, I would have traded this way,
Yeah.
and like, oh my god, it
Yeah,
just
and I
blows
think
my
I
mind.
think like to my point earlier about the belief that somehow automated trading can't adapt to markets as well as as a discretionary trader can. There's some truth to that, but I think the missing component is that there's two fairly well established views on the way markets work and patterns that are fairly easy to pick up from an automated perspective, and that's mean reversion and trend following. And as long as you're trading on slightly higher time frames, you're not on the 1 second chart, and instead you're on the 15-minute or 1 hour or 2 hour chart, you're going to see that signal in the noise. And it, really just trying to take that approach and apply it to multiple symbols, multiple asset classes. That's where I think the domain of automation really shines.
All right, so along the same lines here, is trade journaling a good idea even for automated strategies?
Absolutely. I think the idea of taking note of which trades executed well, why they executed well, starts to help you make refinements elsewhere in your automated approach. But also like slowly learning over time what timeframes are working, how execution and slippage are impacting your models, which asset classes are performing well. You'll find that like not all symbols out there follow the exact approach that you're looking for. Some things can go pretty sideways for a long time. So you're hoping this is a trend following approach and there's no trend to be found. And so, journaling what's working, what's not working is always going to be super beneficial. But even going back to your notes to try to recognize, which trading strategies did work in the past, but maybe stopped working, knowing why that might have happened is useful to your future strategies as the market starts to shift in a different direction again.
The most useful to me is to figure out, why did I intervene into an automated?
Why did you stop?
Why did I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very common factor in strategy performance, is people not realizing that they are a huge risk in the performance of their strategy, because if they intervene or stop it or change the settings in some way, then it can completely throw them off course.
I think it'll be really nice once we have analytics, because it's basically like automated trade journaling. And then we'll be able to expose the difference between your broker fill price in a live broker, the fill price in a paper broker, and the fill price in the strategy backtester. I think that's what commonly kind of messes people up, is they assume they're going to get the same price in their back test, and it is not immediately clear because you kind of have to like manually connect the dots today. There's been a little bit of improvements in TradersPost with the slippage insights. So you can kind of see some of that on an individual trade basis, but in the future, you'll be able to see that across whole strategies, whole accounts, etc.
Right. Being able to see it across both the paper account and the live account is super insightful. To your point, John, that simulation of slippage, even if it's done well at the broker level, still doesn't really necessarily line up with what happens in reality. A good example of this would be MicroStrategy recently was pulling back so fast and so hard that the spread was 15 to 25%. I mean, massive spreads between bid and ask. There's not a slippage model in the world that I know of that does a very good job of simulating that in a static basis. You know, you think of like TradingView's slippage model. It says, okay, you can choose a static number of ticks of slippage to incorporate into your trading strategy. So maybe you put in 5 ticks there or 10 ticks. Well, that represents $1 or 2 of slippage. But for this particular day that MicroStrategy was trading and it was pulling back really fast, it represented $60 slippage differences for where you actually got filled.
Right.
And that's a very hard thing to model for. So over time, if you're running your paper account and the live account at the same time, you'll start to notice the real impact that slippage has in your performance. And you can see what happens in the real world versus paper.
You know, I had a thought, like in our paper broker, we have the ability to choose which price from the quote to use for the fill. And we have an option called use ask for buys and bid for sells. And I'm wondering if like it might be better to make that the default. Because the idea is like you want to basically assume
Worst
you're
case
going to get the
scenario.
worst fill, you know,
Yeah.
like you should just assume that. And right now I think it uses the
Is it the bid ask midpoint?
Right.
it does, yeah, it uses the mark, the midpoint price, which is middle of the ground. But like I think it actually gives you a false sense of like what the strategy is going to do by using that. And we added that market price type so that people could just choose what price they want to use. And I left the default the same, but I think it might make sense to make that change.
I think so too. Worst case scenario, if you can hurdle the worst case scenario, then when it gets to the real world, you might improve upon the results. I'd rather see a paper account that I have positive expectancy from and then do better in the real world than the other way around.
Yeah.
That's right. So touching on that as a feature request, add a chatbot that understands my account so they can create for advice
Yeah.
on improving my strategy, especially when like an analyst comes along. Is this something that we could
I'm all for it. Yeah, we've been talking a lot about this internally about how even our current AI chatbot system, which is the bubble in the bottom right-hand corner of your account, is integrated through Intercom, but Intercom has a whole suite of features that allows us to connect to TradersPost and inform the conversation from your individual account. So it is something we're exploring. We'd love to continue to find ways to use AI to provide feedback in this way. We've been considering ways in which we can analyze your account. So when you log in, you can ask questions about what's performing and what's not. How could I make changes here? So we definitely are very into it. Obviously, as technologists, we're fascinated by AI and the way that it can improve the experience. So, you know, we're all ears. If you're interested in having a chatbot that can walk you through the settings of your strategy, maybe look at the recent performance. Once we've launched analytics, we'll be able to start taking a look at your P&L and the history of your trades, start interpreting some of that and provide feedback. But then also through the support system, we should be able to reach out to your account, get a sense of you could provide like a trade URL, for example. We can analyze the trade, determine what happened, and give you accurate feedback about what went wrong and what you can change.
Yeah, I feel like the analytics is part of the missing piece. So once we have all the order data,
Right.
we could feed that into all kinds of tools.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we would absolutely love to. You know, at the end of the day, we want to arm everyone with as much information as possible to do well.
That'd be so cool. All right. I have 2 accounts on Robinhood, and I want to run automated trading on both. If I set up automated trading on one account and then switch to the other, will the settings for the first account remain unchanged and continue
You would
running?
need to connect it twice.
Yes.
So like you'd have Robinhood A
Right.
connected and Robinhood B. So you'd go through the Robinhood connection process twice. And in the first one, you would connect the A account, and then in the second time you would connect B. And then you could subscribe to your strategy and connect it to each individual Robinhood account. They'd be isolated from each other.
I didn't put this question in before, but someone asked, like, if I have 2 TradersPost account, can I set up one webhook to forward the signal to the other one so they didn't have to set up the two alerts?
Yeah. I mean, if you have 2 separate TradesPost accounts, it would be one strategy with 2 subscriptions.
You just share it with the other account.
Right. They would just subscribe. Right.
But I mean, you could do that within one TradesPost account as well.
Mhm.
Like just set up the strategy, connect your 2 brokerage accounts to TradesPost, and then subscribe to the strategy twice, once for each brokerage account. And then when the strategy receives the webhook, it'll execute the trade in both subscriptions in both brokerage accounts.
All right. How can I get end of day balances of trades? Is this something that exists within our platform?
We get end of day balances at an account level for the broker, but we don't currently have our analytics package launched yet that gives you detailed reports of all the trades that were executed that day. That is something that we could think about enhancing once we launch the first version of analytics. Maybe some kind of end of day report that runs through each of the strategies that were executed. Here's the trades that came with it and the P&L for each one.
Analytics is really going to be a version update for TradesPost.
It unlocks a lot of additional second order features for sure.
It's really complicated. I mean, there are whole businesses that exist that's all they
just
do
for analytics. Right.
So it's really complicated. Lots of data. There's some new infrastructure pieces that we're having to build to be able to support it. But those infrastructure pieces also open up other opportunities, like enhancing the paper broker, like having real-time market data is a necessity, but we don't have that yet. But we will soon for sure.
All right. So last Reddit question. How are you using AI for day trading? Hey traders, AI is transforming every industry. I'm curious how it's impacting day trading. I know, and it could be day trading or long-term trading here. I know some traders use AI for data analysis, strategy optimization, or even automated trading, but I'd love to hear from real traders. So I just wanted to bring up something here because I thought it was pretty interesting. Do you guys use the Grok AI?
Not as much as I'd like to. I think John uses it more than I do.
I use it more because it's like unfiltered. Like ChatGPT is like been lobotomized, and Grok is like they haven't done that yet. I think they will though eventually, but it's a little more wild west in the Grok world.
Well, I love the Grok AI and the deep research. To me, it's just like absolutely invaluable. To me, it blows out all these other platforms out of the water because you get a bunch of the sentiment from tweets, from posts. And so if I want to find out, hey, what crypto assets are newly pumping on the markets, what crashed, and I just want to follow the breadcrumb trail, I can get to really cool setups on charts that I can't normally get in a screener when I'm using the stock screener or the crypto screener on TradingView. I find it to be really fascinating, and I'm almost to the point here when I have time to experiment with the Grok AI API for the AI system on X, where you can query what you would normally query and then actually send a signal to a webhook in order to execute a trade. That's something I want to do on one of the Blueprint episodes where we use Grok AI in order to do that, because so many people like me who are degenerates, we want to find like really outlier moves and to be able to get those like as they're happening, as opposed to at the end of the day, end of the week, or whatever. To see them as they're happening could be pretty interesting. But I was always wondering about you guys use an AI in your own trading or to surface strategies or analyze what you're doing, does it have a part at all?
For me, yes, but I'm not doing it for live chart analysis. I'm more interested in using AI to analyze companies because much of my approach is already generated through chart analysis. Once I've found the companies I'm interested in, I want to very quickly analyze all their 10Q reports, the last, I'll usually pull back 3 or 4 of the last quarterly reports and start to get a sense of what Wall Street analysts are saying, and then sort of compile a summary about where revenues are coming from, why there was a dip in revenue, why earnings have changed. I'm using AI more to dig into deep context to get to answers faster, so I don't have to read all this stuff, and that saves me loads of time if I'm thinking about putting a big position into a company.
Right. And John, do you have time to trade anymore?
I'm not really
You're
actively.
so busy deep in the bell.
I'm not actively like day trading. I do like more swing trades and then just managing my larger portfolios. I definitely, one thing I did do with AI recently, I had money sitting in like a First Horizon managed portfolio for like 20 years, and it was all mutual funds. And I finally was like, I'm gonna take that money out of there. I'm gonna manage it myself. But I basically just used AI to kind of replicate the exact same portfolio that I had in First Horizon, with just low cost ETFs. And AI made it super easy. Like I could have done all that manually by just like sleuthing through Google and searching for the equivalent tickers. But with AI, I was able to do it in basically an
It was
afternoon.
afternoon. Yeah, I think I remember that conversation. You
Wow.
gave it all the mutual fund tickers and it found all the equivalent ETFs that
Yeah.
had similar exposures.
Yeah. Yeah. So much lower cost. And as far as using AI on a daily basis, I definitely use it in my coding. I've definitely used it to help coding Pine Script.
Oh yeah, all over it
Cursor
with Pine
is
Script.
amazing for that. Also, ChatGPT.
Well, even design,
Oh
use
yeah,
VO for
Vercel.
design
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get ideas.
V0.
You're the biggest VO
It's
user
pretty
I've ever
amazing.
met.
I love it.
I'm actually a little frustrated that TradingView hasn't figured out how to get like Claude directly into the Pine Script editor. It would be nice to edit Pine Script right in their interface rather than to have to keep writing it in like Cursor or in ChatGPT and then copying it over.
Well, I wish I could do it in Cursor, but it would like communicate with TradingView.
TradingView,
So
that'd
that
be
way I
interesting.
can code in like my
Right.
normal environment and like it feels familiar and like switching between files and like you can have an actual editor with a file tree and everything. And then, but when you save, it's updating it on the TradingView side.
Published.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we need to figure out how to hack into their API there. Huh?
Or have the ability for strategies to be
I built.
powered and stored in GitHub. Like that
Yeah,
would be
that would be
really
cool.
sweet.
I'd rather it be saved in GitHub for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So last question, very important. It's coming at you fast and hard. When dark mode?
This has come
When
up
is
several
dark
times
mode
now.
coming?
So you can do it now. I mean, you just use the browser's dark mode. I see lots of customers doing that, and it basically just inverts the colors.
We need a native
Yeah.
TradersPost
Yeah,
dark
maybe
mode.
can we demonstrate that? It's been a while since I've attempted that. How do you turn that on in
So I think
Chrome?
you just go to Chrome // flags, and then
Oh, well, I use
just search for dark.
the arc.
There's probably an extension too that'll do it, but it's called Auto Dark
I
Mode
use
for
the arc
web
browser.
contents.
Yeah, so if I do enabled and then relaunch, oh, apparently I have to relaunch the whole browser. Well, that's not going to work. That's going to kick me off this stream. So I'll have to try that again later.
So this is what people are doing. This type of
It doesn't look the same. The
come
one
on.
you can adjust how it inverts. You just got to find the one that you like, and you can tweak it. But I've seen some people that do it, and it looks fine.
It's not bad.
But I think it does take a little bit of work to kind of find the colors that you like and everything.
It's a fair ask, though. We will give it some thought on how we can create a toggle for it. We've got a new designer on the team who can likely help us iron out the color scheme required for that to look good.
Yeah, the thing that
Well, when people tell me I could do my own dark mode, I feel like I'm an Android user. I want the walled
Yeah.
garden. You figure it
The
out.
thing that, man, it sucks is like as soon as you add dark mode, it's like you think about all the permutations of things you have to cover. Now it's like basically doubled the amount of work. Like anytime you
right.
build something, now you have to style it twice, and it's like fuck. It takes me forever to just style it once. Now I got to do it twice.
Well, the good news is most of our images are all SVG files. We do a pretty good job of making things alpha transparent. So even if we were to have these images in place and put a dark mode in place, some of the icons are all going to look okay, and they can be styled in a way that changes them to a brighter color if it's on dark. So I don't think the work is too bad, but I still hear John's point. There are a lot of things that we have to consider.
I'm going to unsubscribe unless dark mode comes. So
it's like that now. All right.
All right. Well, that's it for questions for this week. If you guys have any questions in the future, please post them on YouTube and Discord, send us a message, or tweet it out online. We'd be happy to hear from you for your questions or your feedback. We want to make TradersPost the best automated trading platform in the universe. And we'll be back next Tuesday with even more questions and feedback. Until then,
cheers,
happy
everyone.
trading.
See you guys.